And we are switching to the last talk in the panel, Marija Byhanova, the Russian University of Humanities, here in the live simulators, the example of Spore and The Sims.
Yeah, we can hear you, but we can't see you. Well, my connection is not too good. So I'm going to speak about two projects. They were both developed by Will Wright. He created a lot of different simulators, Sim City, Sim Life. So these are two of his projects that were probably the most ambitious, but they are almost, some of them are forgotten today, yet there are 33 million people online who are playing The Sims. They are very popular. Is everything all right? I think the sound is sort of wrong. Yeah, it could have disappeared because my connection is not very good. The Sims is the simulation of life in a city. Spore is the simulator of evolution. The final stage is the creation of a universe. Gender issue is very important here, especially when it comes to The Sims. There are a lot of studies. I'm terribly sorry. Yeah, the connection is terrible. So what is important here is the issue of gender. Can you hear me? Let me ask it again. Yeah, we can hear you. It's all right. That's great. Quantic Foundry carried out a survey based on 270,000 gamers, showed that 18.5% of women are playing the games and 69% choose to play simulators. A lot of articles on The Sims are bringing up the issue of gender. There is a gender difference in the players' patterns and types of play. 80% of women were the players. So how can we see care in The Sims? There is the care on the part of the player who is developing the social integration of the character. The player is training the character. The Sims themselves can't find a job themselves. They develop their skills. They can socialize in a way, but it is the player who is in control. The second issue is care for a pet. The Sims can't always take care of themselves. They sometimes need assistance. Sometimes they might go sleeping, forgetting about their other problems. And the last aspect is care as self-knowledge. One of the studies by Sarah Everetson showed that women are playing The Sims in order to control reality that is beyond their control in real life. When something that is out of their reach happens in their life, they want to find the situation where they feel safe and secure. What kind of care do Sims perform themselves? They care for their family, and there is the gender aspect. If a child is crying, then a character would come to the child. It would always be a woman in both chapters, so where if you call in a nanny, it will always, the character will always be a woman. So there is a strong gender issue in The Sims. AI is developing rapidly, and the characters, and I can see that on the challenges from those who are playing Sims. I left my Sim, look what happened. The further the series is developed, the more likely your Sims to become more autonomous without you. The game simulates real life. There are different ways to experience care, and the game doesn't have an end. This game is very empathic because you see a lot of people around you, playing with you. There is a way to show care, and care is shown by the players. As for care in the sport, we can say that this is the care of the higher goal or the higher will. So we are the instrument of evolution, but I'd say that in the sport, there is a strong creationist influence. Though there are other ways of describing care in the sport. At the tribe stage, we're taking care for our families, and at the civilization stage, we're taking care of the welfare of the city, and it is also kind of care. So in the sport, there are several but limited instruments. But still, the dominant theme is the care performed by the higher intelligence. I think there is a strong feeling of co-participation in The Sims. The care mechanism is employed more strongly because the care there is more gendered, and I'd say that what makes The Sims more popular. In the sport, even though care is at stake, it didn't find its own audience. There are a lot of God simulations, but the ambition of the sport, which was initially to merge different instruments, didn't work well for the sport, and that's why I think it wasn't so successful. During my study, I discovered another very important aspect. The Sims has fashion. A lot of people are playing The Sims because of fashion, and because of their sadistic drives. So we can say that there are two really polar things. There are some people who come there for taking care of their characters, but there are other people who come to The Sims to actually perform some sadistic acts. I think that this is it. I hope you heard me well. Maria, thank you for your talk. It was really fast. I think, yeah, you really left us a lot of time for a Q&A session, so we can jump in it now. I really liked this aspect of players who come to play The Sims because they want to do something not so nice with their characters. Yeah, it is an interesting thing. I didn't study it so much. As speaking for violence, of course, people are trying to do something that they can't do in their life. It might be like mistreating people or bullying them. There might also be an internal demand, and maybe I'm psychologizing it a bit, but there might be some people who are weak in their everyday life and they have a lot of negative emotions that they want to let out. But of course, this issue should be studied. I haven't really dived into this issue, but I really like the study of Emil Delange. She studied how the players are playing RPGs. There are a lot of players who chose a way of a good character, but if they could go through the game for the second time, they would change either the gender of the character or switch to an evil side. As far as I understand, if the player is playing for an evil character, that doesn't mean that this player is aggressive in his or her real life, but maybe they just want to experience a different role. So I think this is an interesting issue to explore. Colleagues, maybe you'd like to ask your questions by voice. If you'd allow me, there is a really good joke. All of us are playing an evil person for the second time if we have a second opportunity. Maria, could you please turn off the presentation and turn off your camera? Yeah, I'll do that. Just a second. Colleagues, would you like to ask your questions by voice? Yes, I can ask my question. Hello, everyone. In the both games you showed, there are ways to mistreat characters that we are responsible for. Do you think that there is some big difference between emotions that people feel in mistreating someone in the sport and in the Sims? If in the Sims we can drown someone or beat someone up, yell at someone, etc. Or in the spore, we can destroy a settlement or a planet. So do you think that there is different emotional output? I think, yes, there is a difference because different characters are involved. In The Sims, these are humans. They are, of course, virtual, but still they are sort of humans. And I think the emotions are stronger. In the sport, characters are some creatures that we can't really associate with. And I think that the player sees it as their own civilization and not the civilization that they destroyed. So you can destroy others, but you yourself are fine. Maybe my analysis is a bit subjective. Thank you for your response. We have one more question in the chat from Andrei. How can we see gender balance in sadistic modes? Yeah, I haven't really watched all the modes. I think sometimes they are really hardcore. The gender issue is, of course, can be raised here. If I remember, in Sims 4, you can introduce domestic violence. When a husband beats up a wife, and this mode is set in Russia. They add all the possibilities that exist. You can make your interior look as if you lived in a Soviet house. That looks like a pernicious social commentary. Maybe you seen some research in this area. Can there be some game that can go into domestic violence? Have you seen any games on that? Yeah, game as a social commentary. That could be interesting. And I think that it can be also explored through different mechanics. When you're playing, you're involved in the process, and I think that might enable a person to feel this problem stronger. When these mechanics are introduced into live simulators, it might not be exactly what the developers wanted to see. They wanted to create something nice and warm for you. And of course, you won't be able to live in the world of rosy ponies, but still they didn't want to make a family unfriendly game. So social commentary is important, but I'm not so sure that it should be mixed with The Sims. And what about the stance of developers? Have you seen any comments from them? I think that they don't know how many thematic modifications there are. In part 4, they restricted the use of different modes. It is more difficult now to do, yet people do it, but they are blocking different modes because the user content is better than the developer's content. So I think they don't even realize how big a divide there is. Thank you. Colleagues, are there any other questions? Because we still have time for discussion. I think this is a very interesting issue. So if you want to ask questions, please ask them.
Если можно, на самом деле мне было любопытно, сохраняется ли именно среди игроков для ванильной версии игры и для BDSM модов всевозможных.
I wanted to know what is the gender division between those who like to introduce sadistic modes. I haven't seen any studies on that, and I actually began to pay attention it only during my work, and I haven't studied it more in detail. Yeah, that is a really interesting question. I began to realize in my work, and I figured that I won't have time for a survey. So that would be representative. Colleagues, do we have any other questions to Marija? May I ask one?
У меня был вопрос, а как вы думаете, да, как можно объяснить вот это решение?
How can the designer's decision to make Sims more independent be explained? because I've already encountered this trend, and I would really love to hear your explanation of this evolution towards more autonomy.
Ну да, тут скорее так. Ну, в общем-то, как бы в одном из исследований я заметила такую интересную строчку, что...
In one of the researches that I've been studying, I learned that the Sims is something that unites Tamagotchi and soap opera. So you're taking care, you're watching, you are participating. I think that the game evolution could be tied to the fact that you want to observe, you want to watch, you want to find out what they're going to do, how they're going to act. But we'll see further evolution in part 5. Because right now it's difficult to talk about it more in depth. Thank you. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, if there are further questions, we can discuss them. If not, then maybe we can round up our session. Colleagues, I would propose that we have a general discussion on 3 talks that we heard. Maybe there are new questions to the speakers. Yeah, as far as I understand, I think that exploring care for human characters and animal characters is extremely interesting, and it could be nice to see more research into aggressive treatment of pets or human characters. Because we know that there are some players who play cruel video games, though these people are not necessarily cruel themselves. That's something that has been disproved scientifically. Still, I think this is an interesting field of research. Colleagues, do you have any questions or comments to that? Nina has just written that she's definitely one of those people. Yeah, hilarious. There are studies. Yes, okay. Yeah, there are some surveys that show that there is a connection, and other research shows that there is no such connection. I would say that there is a connection, but it's not the cause and effect one. So we can't say that video games are producing the effect of violence. We can't say that it is the video games that are making people cruel, and this is the message that we can find in mass media. Of course, this has been disproved. But if we know that there is some cruel person who makes a crime and plays video games, and of course there is this primitive connection. And I think this is a very difficult issue. There is also the issue of social norm in video games. These things are very different. Game norms are the ones who are dictated by the creator, by the maker. If this is the game about destroying, about violence, then it is the social norm of this game. And we shouldn't bring social norms from our physical world. We should not import them from the physical world into the world of the game. I think frame theory could also be employed here. I would like to also comment on the news and mass media. If there is a person who committed a crime and they're playing a shooting game, then people make this connection instantaneously. I think this is a really strange link. I myself ran across a study that put forward an assumption that if young people who tend to have deviating behavior and they spend time playing video games, they might be less harmful for the society. I'm not sure for their time, but yeah, I also came across a study that explained that people who are potentially aggressive should engage more with video games, but there are a lot of things that can be said against it. Yeah, I agree.
May I ask, I wanted to ask our international colleagues, I mean, from now we have, I think, Nina Patricia and Finia Weisdorf here in the conference. For that reason, I switched to English. That seems quite interesting for me to ask you in that exact moment of the discussion, if in the Europe, I mean, as I remember that Finia Weisdorf is from Germany and Nina Patricia who at least works in Denmark, as I remember from ITU of Copenhagen. I wanted to ask you, do you still have those stereotypes in mass media in Europe? Because I'm not so, I don't have so much information about how the news in European TV or European internet websites are talking about some massacres and about some crimes by maniacs and so on. But in Russian media, we still have great, very strong stereotype that connects, that ties all the time the crimes made by maniacs, often by school, by students and so on, with the fact that they played video games, allegedly played video games at least. And I wondered, is it still the same in Europe, or it is now only in, is it still active only in Russian context?
Hello.
Hello, hi, thank you for reacting.
Definitely still a very big thing. It has been for the last decades, and whenever there was like a attack or like a school shooting, the people would always bring up violent video games, even though there are studies that tell us that there might be not the biggest connection between real life violence and game violence. Yeah, but we still have this for sure. I'm also going to talk about this a bit in my later presentation, that this stereotype is still a very big thing. And sometimes we think, aren't we done with this? Like, aren't we over this topic yet? Because it keeps being brought up. But as soon as something happens, politicians especially will come up and say, well, but the person who shot a school, for example, he also played Counter-Strike. So that must be the reason. And it's very sad and boring that this is still such a big discourse.
Yeah, so thank you for the answer, because it makes me a little bit, well, not so much happier than I'm now that, but nevertheless, I don't feel that now in Russia we are in such absolute awful situation, at least in this relation to the situation that connects media, that connects violence and video games and media. So yeah, but definitely I would love this situation to be somehow changed, and our journalists and politicians and so on be a little bit more enlightened, so to say. Yeah.
Yeah, but events like today's are a good way to show that video games also have the potential to be something different and are not only related to a violent discourse, but can, for example, be used for care and for psychological growth and care and self-care. So I think it's great that these new discourses are getting more and more popular, and hopefully also in Germany, where we, like I said, still kind of circle around the whole violence theme still.